The Soviet Union used to be the laughingstock of Hearts of Iron 4, and honestly, it was very much deserved. How does perhaps the number one enemy of Germany in World War II have a focus tree this small, while countries like Turkey and Spain have focus trees 4 to 5 times bigger? You know, those two famous World War II participants. But when No Step Back rolled around, the Soviets finally got their long-awaited makeover. And wow, this is truly one of the greatest glow-ups of the 21st century. The new updated focus tree has a total of 309 focuses. I'm pretty sure that those could last like all the way through the Cold War. There's so many paths, so many choices, so many scenarios. There is so much stuff that I never actually had time to try everything this country has to offer, and I'm guessing neither had you. So I thought that it would be pretty fun to go over 10 ways to play the Soviet Union in Hearts of Iron 4. But first, I'll quickly go over 3 things. As you can probably tell, the Soviet focus tree is a bit more complicated than the German one, and there are multiple different subpaths with multiple additional choices within them too. This means that there are almost infinite ways to play the Soviet Union. To prevent this video from having 300 segments, I will be mixing and matching some of those paths and combining the ones which I think work the best together. So you could do the political and expansion focuses differently than what I show in this video. I just think that it's better that this video isn't 9 hours long. And like in the previous episode, these are mainly scenarios based on historical mode, where countries other than the Soviet Union act like they did in real life, at least to the extent they can in this game. And the Soviets will be the ones who diverge from their historical paths, if they do. And just like before, this is all in vanilla Hearts of Iron, so no mods except this one, Colorize Your Country, which I will be using to make Puppet Master relationships more clear and to just overall enhance the visual storytelling. So if any country looks a bit different from what they normally look like in the game, that's because I changed it. But it looks better this way, doesn't it? Okay, that's all. Let's start. It's 1936. A very uncertain time in history, where the international order set after the Great War is starting to crumble. The Soviet Union, formerly Russian Empire, has, let's say, seen better days. After years of war, 2 revolutions and a devastating civil war, the country is in a very unstable state. But luckily, the man in charge, the cunning and brilliant, Joseph, is ready to take control and put the country on the right track once more. This he will achieve by working closely with his advisors and other members of the party to ensure effective and coherent management of different sectors of— Wait, what? He's going to kill everyone? For real? Okay then. So apparently he's going to kill everyone. So yeah, Mr. Joseph here does not feel very secure in his position, so he wants to kill or exile all those who oppose him, or all those who he suspects to oppose him, and you have to manage all that. You of course don't want everyone useful to the functioning of your society dead, so you need to strategically choose who you are willing to sacrifice and when. So frame all your opposition, assassinate the rival in Mexico, and purge all the navy commanders, because who needs those? In a few years, Joseph should have finally calmed down a bit. Now that your best generals, half of your advisors, and all rising stars are dead, the country is finally ready to rise from the ashes, and we can focus on showing everyone what a stand-up guy Mr. Joseph is. All the while all this was going on, Germany was making some moves in Europe. This is bad news. The fascists are the worst enemy of the working man, and Germany, as the leading force of this evil ideology, must be destroyed. Oh, a treaty with Germany? Yes, please. And now they want to split Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. These guys are great. Now they started a massive war with the Western democracies. Well, luckily we get to sit this one out. Oh, and they already conquered Poland and kept their promise and gave the eastern parts of it to us. The Germans truly are a people we can trust. While the Allies are busy with Germany, it's your turn to consolidate your sphere of influence. Let's start with Finland. You demand Karelia from them because Leningrad is looking pretty vulnerable right now. And they don't accept. Well, that's their choice. Maybe we could just take over Finland completely then. Okay, Karelia will have to do. Our other targets better just accept. How about you, Baltics? Alright, they agree to be occupied, and Romania transfers Bessarabia to us. Great. What's next? The Japanese are getting pretty crazy in China. Luckily, we have a non-aggression pact with them. And what was that sound?
Oh shit!
And of course the Red Army sucks. If we just barely beat Finland, there is no way we can survive a full-blown German invasion. I think this is it. Leningrad, Moscow, and Stalingrad are all within the reach of the German forces. I'm sorry, allies. Even with your help, we can't stop them. You're gonna have to do this on your own. Oh, lessons of war are finally done. The fascists have been vanquished. The Great Patriotic War is over. And while it took a heavy toll on the Soviet people, the Union is still standing. The peace treaty was largely negotiated before the war ended, and as a result, Germany was split into 4 occupation zones. But more importantly, the Eastern European countries, liberated by the glorious Red Army, are in a prime position to be influenced further. To save them from any future invasions, it's only appropriate that we take the matter of their security into our own hands. The Western allies aren't too happy with our growing influence in Europe, but I don't see them doing anything about it. Now only Japan remains, and while there was no fighting between us due to our non-aggression pact, intervening in the war could greatly strengthen the position of communism in Asia. Let's take over Manchuria and let the Yanks worry about the home islands. What was that? 2 massive explosions and the Japanese immediately surrendered. This is impossible. The Americans have some sort of super weapon and we don't. This is not good. We must immediately pour all our research into developing this nuclear bomb. Only then can we ensure that the scheming capitalists can't end the revolution, at least without a retaliation in kind. With the advent of these new weapons, traditional warfare between great powers is a thing of the past. We must come up with new ways of influencing other countries to bend to our will so that we can truly cement our position as the leading global power. As the world grows ever more unstable, it's clear that the current world order will sooner or later collapse. But if you play your cards right, the Soviet Union can come out of the chaos as the global hegemon. To ensure that, you need to prepare for the war that will inevitably come. But first, Mr. Joseph will still kill everyone he doesn't like. Not much you can do about that. Before a larger war starts, we could secure our southern flank by invading Turkey. Romania is highly likely to intervene, so we can occupy them too. Luckily, the Allies don't care enough to do anything about it. When the Turkish campaign is over, you need to as quickly as possible move in to aid the Spanish in their fight against fascism. You can't let the Republic fall. Even though it's an uphill battle against the militarily superior nationalists, you can still outmaneuver them and secure the Republican victory. This doesn't come without a cost for the Spaniards, as they are now heavily indebted to you and for all intents and purposes serve as your puppet in Western Europe. The Allies won't be accepting any more territorial expansion, so it's time to sit back for a while and build up your country in preparation for another great war. When the Germans eventually offer to split Eastern Europe into spheres of influence, you decide to accept, even though the fascists are obviously not trustworthy. But with this apparent partnership, you can focus on consolidating your influence over your neighbors, while the Western allies spend all their efforts fighting Germany. When the war starts, you quickly move in to occupy Eastern Poland and the Baltics, and while Finland initially rejects your demands, there is no way that they could ever stop the Red Army. Additionally, if we send some bombers to northern Finland and let them fly a little bit off course and bomb some towns in Sweden, the Swedes will then also join the war on the side of Finland. On top of that, they will form a faction with Finland, which makes them a major country, which means we can do desperate measures in late 1939. Pretty nice. And now we can just puppet them both. But that's not all. As the Allies are fully locked in fighting the Axis, they couldn't even imagine adding the Soviet Union to their list of enemies. Because of this, the remaining Balkan nations are completely alone in face of any threat. One by one, you demand submission from every one of them, and if they don't accept, you send in your military to persuade them. As your final preparations, you build a massive line of fortifications all along your border with Germany. No one is getting through all that. And just as expected, the Germans stab you in the back and start a full-blown invasion in the summer of 1941. But they quickly realize their mistake as they fail miserably to break your defensive lines. And they can't even invade any of your puppets as long as you don't call them into the war. Not an inch of Soviet land is lost. After some time of the Germans ramming their heads into a wall, you can finally start your counterattack. You must focus your first offensive on Italy. Yes, the soft underbelly of Europe. As you push into their territory more and more, the Italians quickly lose all morale and eventually oust the Fascist party from the lead. A civil war starts, with the northern half as your puppet. Now you're in a perfect position to continue into France, where you can open another front against Germany. Soon, red flags fly all over Paris. The citizens hail you as their liberator, but I wouldn't say that they're exactly liberated, more like under new management. With your earlier efforts to build an undercover collaboration government in France, your new puppet has a legitimate claim to all of their territory. It doesn't take long before Germany too falls. As the Western Allies have almost no sway in the peace talks, basically all of the Axis territory falls under your control. But why stop there? The Allies don't really even have many footholds on the continent. They can't stop you from taking the rest. If it means war, then it means war. And look at that, all of Europe under your control, and much of Asia too. Maybe now's a good time to rebrand your power block. You're now the leader of Eurasia. Now we could ally with Japan and their new power block, East Asia. We have a common enemy, the Allies, or whatever they call themselves now. I have a feeling that this war is not going to end anytime soon. Okay, maybe I got a bit carried away. Alternatively, you could use that navy you took from Italy to invade the United Kingdom and then the US. Then you just need to liberate China and take over Japan. And that's it. Now the title Father of Nations truly fits. You know what? Mr. Joseph has completely lost his way. His fixation on developing socialism in only one country has fully sidelined the ultimate goal of international revolution. It's also not great that he kills anyone who disagrees with him. He must be stopped, but it's way too late to do so by peaceful means. No, this is a problem that can only be solved with a second revolution, and the one who will lead it is Mr. Lev, Trotsky. After a few months of preparations, the time is finally ripe for the second revolution. Here we go. And our side is victorious. Now that this monster and his anti-revolutionary ideology have been ousted, it's time to erase any and all traces of his legacy. Trotsky is now the leader of the Union of Soviet Republics, and the outlook of the country must reflect that. Stalingrad? What are you talking about? It was always Trotskygrad. Okay, time to finally carry out the international revolution. We can start with our European neighbors by campaigning to influence their citizens and using our intelligence agency to boost communist ideals even further. Let's try it in practice in, for example, Estonia. Soon, the people will be up in revolt, and we can swoop in to ensure that their efforts won't go to waste. Just a few more days. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Wait, what? We only get a war goal on them. Well, that's lame as hell. That is not a revolution, that's just a plain old invasion. Really disappointing. And no, I don't think that the decisions to raise a few new divisions behind our enemy's lines constitutes a revolution. Well, what if we try to pressure their governments directly? Our efforts to boost communism within their populace has left them in no position to say no to our demands. Come on, Baltics, just do the right thing. Well, all of them joined our faction, but only one flipped to communism. It's better than nothing, I guess. Well, how about the Middle East? They have also been more and more in support of communism. Okay, a few flipped. What the hell? This is the worst international revolution I've ever seen. It also takes ages to do all these decisions, because our new policy of decentralization leaves us almost no political capital to do anything. Okay, fuck this. We're going all out. We're just invading everyone, whether they want it or not. I don't care how long it will take. There will be an international revolution. This is the Fourth International for you. Maybe the idea of an international revolution really had no basis on anything. There was only one revolution, and we just forced everyone to be like us. But hey, I guess that worked out too. Okay, one last choice. Now we could strengthen the trade unions and then establish the Supreme Soviet as the one ruling body of our country. But nah, Trotsky is not a bad leader, and he has some better ideas. Instead, we will decentralize even further so that the people can decide on the issues that affect them the most. We shall offer greater autonomy for those who wish for that. This is what true revolution looks like. Okay, apparently literally everyone wants more autonomy, but that's alright. After all, what unites us is the fact that we're all United Soviet Socialist Republics. You know what? Mr. Joseph is pretty crazy, but Trotsky and his bloc aren't that much better. Their vision is too radical and inefficient. Instead, we should let the right opposition take charge. And here we have an interesting opportunity. We can actually depose Joseph and take over with a bloodless coup. Well, one guy will bleed a bit, but that's kinda the point. Honestly, this coup just takes so long to do, especially if you want to bring democracy back into the party later. And that's what we're trying to do this time. Become a bit more democratic, no more killing people. Also, if you wanted to, you could support the POUM and get a new ally in Spain, but it would take yet another 140 days, and enough people have died already, so maybe we should just get on with this coup already. Let's assassinate Joseph. Okay, now we just oust Beria, and we're in control. Nice. Let's befriend the allies. This time we'll try to stop Germany early. No treaties with the fascists. Instead, we'll form a defensive pact with France and Poland. This means that we can't take Eastern Poland for ourselves, but you know what? That's okay. We're not really trying to focus on Europe too much. We'll just take out the only threat of the continent quickly and then focus on Asia, where true potential lies. Speaking of which, Chiang Kai-shek has just been arrested. Normally we just let him go and have him fight Japan, but this time we'll retire him early. From life. Soon, Nationalist China will be fighting both Japan and Communist China, while those two are at peace with each other. You see where this is going? Oh, World War II just started. Don't worry, Poland, we're coming to help you. The Germans are pushing us back pretty hard, but that was always expected. We have barely built up our army at all, and most of our good generals are dead. Okay, this is a lot harder than I thought. France, what are you doing? You have barely dealt 1,000 casualties on Germany. Do you want us to lose? Hey, Communist China wants to join our faction, to which we will say yes. Now Nationalist China joins the Axis, which means Japan is fighting the Axis, which means Germany is fighting Japan. And our army reforms are finally showing their effects. Okay, it's so over for them. How is Japan better at liberating Europe than France? What the hell? Okay, the war is over, and this time instead of puppeting everyone, we have set up independent communist governments who can govern themselves. They'll work as a perfect buffer zone in case of any future Western invasion. Now we can focus on China, which is also at peace, but not for long. Let's help out the PRC and focus on liberating the rest of China from our former enemy turned ally, turned enemy, turned ally, turned enemy. And the mainland has been liberated. We can't really invade Japan because our navy is non-existent, so we'll let the Americans deal with that. And look at that. 2 massive communist countries together in an alliance. This is certain to immensely boost the standing of communism not just in Asia, but worldwide. Nothing could ever break our partnership. Okay, and one more thing. We could fight for the common good of the people, but nah, that is lame. Instead, we will focus on strengthening the trade unions. As you know, those two things are mutually exclusive. Okay, but for real, what we actually want is to transform the country into the true bastion of democracy it was always meant to be. By establishing the Supreme Soviet, we can ensure that the people can decide the future of the country. And that was always the true purpose of the revolution. And while the Allies don't exactly like us, they're not overtly hostile either. Maybe a peaceful coexistence with them is possible after all. Perhaps the times of war are finally over. Okay, no more communism. No matter what we do, there will always be a purge of some kind. With the communist system standing, that is inevitable. And we do not want any more dead people. To fix this, we will start a civil war. And the remnants of the White Army shall take over, just as they should have the first time. But now that almost nothing remains of the White Army and the communists have been in power for around 15 years now, the civil war is much easier to win. For the White Army, I mean. So, let's start the preparations for a civil war, bolster nationalist movements, bring back the church, and so forth. And with a few months of covert operations, we're ready to launch our uprising. It's now or never. As you can see, we only really control territory in Siberia. Now we just need to worm our way all the way to the west and take all the key cities. And if any regional uprisings start, do not ally them, unless they are Ukraine or Belarus. Those two we need to be independent, at least for now. Any other uprising you should just take back as you advance. This will save you from a lot of trouble later. Okay, now you can finish the civil war. And just like that, the Romanovs are back in power, and our country is ridiculously stable considering the circumstances. Okay, now we can start improving relations with Ukraine and Belarus, and then demand their subjugation. If they accept, great. If they don't, we'll make them accept. But we'll also let them stay semi-autonomous. This is an important strategic choice. We're also going to join World War II early by guaranteeing our Slavic brothers, which includes Poland. As we're going to be fighting on the same side as the Allies, we could propose reforming the Triple Entente, as that worked really well the last time. So let's ask the British what they think of this. And no, they will not accept. Ever. As long as France has already joined the Allies, they will not accept. But it really doesn't matter that much, because you can easily join the Allies if you guarantee Poland's independence. But it's still pretty annoying that they'll never agree to this part of the focus tree, at least on historical mode. But just for this scenario, let's pretend that they do, because this is a little bit cooler than this, right? Okay then, the Great War Part 2 is about to start. And there it goes. But I'm gonna have to tell you something. We're not actually gonna help you, Poland. I'm sorry. That just isn't part of the master plan. As you see, when Poland falls, there is no way Germany can continue into our territory because we have two independent buffer states between us. Now we can send all of our army to the Western Front. There is no way Germany could ever break into France with the combined armies of three major powers defending it. Now we just need to bide our time until we can counterattack. When you do eventually start pushing Germany back, you could also reconquer all your former imperial territories and some more while you're at it. No one is going to stop you. Okay, eventually the Axis falls. Now you could maybe turn some of your former enemies into monarchist client states. It's only fair. Next, we're going to take out Japan, but of course, this time we'll help the nationalists. And that's it. The world is finally at peace. With liberal democracies in the West and a non-expansionist monarchy more interested in protecting its Slavic neighbors in the East, there for once are no great power conflicts stirring up unrest. The future looks peaceful for the continent. Now we can focus on rebuilding and strive for every day to be better than the previous one. Or we could form the third Rome. Like, come on, why not? Russia is the obvious heir to the legacy of Rome. We already control the city of Rome, and our leader is the head of the Orthodox Church, the true church, which, let's admit, is basically a continuation of Roman institutions. Now we'll just need Constantinople and the Holy Lands. I'm sorry, Britain, if you're not giving it to us peacefully, then there will be war. The world shall know no peace until the hand of God has struck down the enemies of Rome. Only then shall we step into the new era of Pax Romanum. Okay, there's another way to play Monarchist Russia. This time we don't really care what the Allies think of us, so we can introduce a bit of cheese into our strategy. Before you even start the preparations for the Civil War, start justifying a war goal on the United States, but only to make the people of the world a bit more nervous. Now when the Civil War is about to start, you can send basically your whole army, except the people part of it, to Spain. When the war breaks out, you can pull your equipment back and your enemies will have nothing. Also, remember to convert your whole army to the new revolutionary division of one cannon. The communists will forget how to change their division designs, so winning the war should be a bit easier. Actually, you should do that every time you're planning on fighting a civil war. It's too overpowered. Also, this time don't let anyone become independent. Let's go. Okay, now that the civil war is over and the monarchy has been restored, we can put our new plan into motion. Do not reform the Triple Entente. We don't need them. Instead, focus on where the true power of your nation comes from. Its Slavic heritage. Yes, while Pan-Slavism failed once, it's because we didn't fully commit to it. We won't make the same mistake again. When fighting between Lithuania and Poland breaks out in 1938 due to the artificially high world tension, be sure to create a faction with Lithuania. Yes, and take all of Poland for yourself. That's step 1. Then, when Germany proposes the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, why is he still here? Do not accept it. You don't want to give away half of Poland. Weirdly enough, Germany can't even demand Danzig from you, so World War II will start with them invading the lowlands. And actually, the order Germany does their focuses is all out of whack, but whatever, just don't join the war. Let the Allies worry about Germany on their own. Now, conquer every country you can get a war goal on and start preparing for Operation Barbarossa. And when the invasion begins, it should be a bit easier to defend against it, because you didn't really lose anything in the Civil War due to our shenanigans. Now just hold the line until you can counter-attack. Also, remember to embrace Pan-Slavic nationalism. When you do so, some other Slavic countries might agree to be immediately annexed by you, but they most likely won't. Instead, you will just have to integrate their territories as you occupy them. And when you eventually do occupy all of them, you can finally proclaim the Pan-Slavic Union and get tons of cores. The Axis stands no chance. This is the New World Order. It's a bipolar world, where tensions between the conservative monarchist Eastern Bloc and the liberal democratic Western Bloc are increasing at an ever-growing pace. As a reaction to the forming of an authoritarian, traditionalist Pan-Slavic Union, the Western democracies are more and more resorting to left-wing ideologies. Only time will tell which side will emerge victorious from this era of Cold War. So far we have only ever focused on fighting the Axis. But why? It's clear that the Western democracies are bad allies who always turn on us in the end. And I've heard that Germany is as good of an ally as you can get. So why not take this Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact to the next level and establish a formal alliance between us two shunned great powers. And also, we'll turn fascist. And of course, Germany accepts. You might be thinking that hey, this is just the Berlin-Moscow axis. Again. And to that I say, you are right. This is the Berlin-Moscow axis. But this time it makes sense, because you know, one of the members is not communist. And also this time, the Allies don't care enough to form any kind of grand alliance, which is good news for us. You already know how this is going to end. And there, the Allies have paid the ultimate price for daring to stand against us. Now it's time for Japan to pay for what they did to us in 1905. And there is no doubt that the US must pay for them not allowing us to freely influence South American countries. And Italy too, because your color is too similar to ours. And that's basically the whole world conquered and shared between two equal superpowers. But this time, our ideological similarity will prevent any and all hostilities from... Man, you didn't even let me finish. Sorry Germany, that was a mistake. While you ran out of focuses ages ago, we still have tons left over. You never had a chance. The world? Nah, it's all Russian Empire. What can we even do at this point? There is no one left to oppose us. What would Germany do in this situation? Oh right, we're fascist. This means that we should just annex everything. There we go. And also, we'll form the Pan-Slavic Union because it's way better than Third Rome. Like come on, you can't deny it. There's one focus which feels pretty absurd. Now let's say that the Second Civil War is not going that well, even with all the bonuses and events which are designed to stack the deck in your favor. Well, there's one last lifeline left. You can request Imperial Protection from Japan, aka they join the Civil War and you become their puppet. What? So let's do that. And to simp Japan even more, let's give them Northern Sakhalin and Vladivostok too. In return, they give us a full 24-division army, which is pretty nice, not gonna lie. Now you might be thinking, the Russian Civil War is not that hard. Why would anyone ever do this? Well, I actually think that this is the secret meta strat for Russia. While having Japan on your side in the Civil War is kind of useful, the true advantage of this focus comes from Japan forcing you to fight China with them. Yes, now hear me out. You probably know that China is a faction leader, which means that they are a major power. And this means that you can do the desperate measures focus as early as 1937. And in 1938 you can start doing all these overpowered military focuses. Your army will be supercharged before World War II even begins. That is insane. But hey, I don't want to be a Japanese puppet. Well, you don't have to, because as long as you contribute something to the war against China, you get tons of autonomy, and you can easily break free before 1939. But I suggest that you do that before you do the Romanov reconstruction focus, because otherwise this will happen, and that's just hideous. After that, you can choose either the monarchist or the fascist path. The monarchist path works a bit better for this, so we'll choose that. Now I suggest that you focus on defeating China and building up in preparation for the German invasion. China should be easily defeated before 1941, but there's a slight problem. For some reason, Germany will invade you a full year early, and you're probably not ready for a two-front war like that just yet. You might want to transfer most of your troops to the west and let Japan deal with China. Also remember, even if you're independent, you're most likely still in the Japanese faction, so Germany will be at war with Japan too. Now even with your somewhat weaker army, Germany should have a hard time pushing into your territory, because you have your goddamn super soldiers melting all their divisions, like holy shit, these are OP. Beating Germany shouldn't even be that hard, even with the whole China situation going on. Though Japan will eventually declare war on the Allies, you don't have to join the war. Actually, when both Axis and China have capitulated, you can show your gratitude to Japan and betray them. Now they are your Imperial Protectorate. So this was the secret OP strat for Russia. While it was pretty cursed, there's something even more cursed you can do with the Civil War path. There's one more ideology to go over. But hey, the Soviet Union doesn't have a democratic path. No, they do not, but we don't need one. Here's what you need to do. Start the preparations for the Second Civil War and ban fascism as soon as you can. Then, do nothing. Don't set up a secret headquarters, don't do any additional Civil War focuses, and don't lower political paranoia. We want the Civil War to start as soon as possible, so try to get paranoia levels all the way to 100%. Then the Civil War should ignite. And because you didn't set up your headquarters, your uprising will start in a random state with a minuscule army. So it's pretty much essential that you do the cheese strats which I showed earlier. If you did those, it shouldn't be that hard to win the Civil War. When you win, consolidate power as fast as you can. Now you'll notice that your democratic support will rise pretty damn fast. This is because we banned fascism and support for neutrality will not increase either. Now you can just play as you normally would. Pretty soon you'll have enough democratic support to hold a referendum. Now you can ditch the monarchy and become the Russian Federation, led by who other than Mr. Kerensky. Pretty crazy. But if you want to do something even more cursed, do not do the referendum yet. Let the support for democracy grow until there's yet another civil war. In this one, you need to take control of the democratic faction and defeat the monarchists. Now after a third civil war, you can form the Third Rome, and you still have the referendum decision, which you can use to become a democratic Third Rome. Now I don't know why you'd want to do this, it doesn't give you any bonuses or anything, it's just kinda something you can do, and maybe that's the point, that it is possible, that after all, the Soviet Union does have a democratic path. And no, the Allies still won't agree to reform the Triple Entente, they just straight up hate you. Okay, one more. There is another way to become democratic as the Soviet Union, this time with the Marxist-Leninist path. Do either of the two communist opposition paths. With the left opposition, this strat is a bit easier, so we'll choose that. Now you need to ban fascism, start the civil war, and beat the Stalinists. Then start hoarding some of that political power, because we are going to be justifying at least 10 war goals. And then abandoning them all. This is because every time you miss out on a timed war goal, you lose 5% support for your ruling ideology, and this 5% will be transferred to the only other valid option, democracy. To get the referendum decision, you'll need at least 60% support for democracy. This will take a while, but you can speed up the process a bit with the permanent revolution decisions, which also give you timed war goals. Now even though Trotsky has a plus 15% war goal justification time trait, that is not a problem at all, because he also has a minus 30% subversive actions cost modifier, which also reduces the time to justify a war goal. This can even be turned into a minus 50% modifier with a single focus. So Trotsky can actually justify war goals pretty damn fast. You can pretty easily reach 60% democratic support by 1939, and there you go. You are now democratic Russia with the left opposition focus tree. Oh, and you also have the propaganda and Comintern focuses too. And what are the reasons to do something like this? Well, I mean, I'm sure that there are at least some. Probably. So now you can join the Allies and save the world from fascism. Crazy. Oh, and also, you can do this exact same thing with fascism if you ban democracy at the start of the game. So now you can join the Axis and save the world from democracy. Crazy. This tree is kinda broken. And that was 10 ways to play the Soviet Union. Okay, there are still some things that I didn't mention, but this video would be 5 hours long if I went into detail with every single one of them. So you probably understand why I didn't do that. Instead, here is a lightning round of some of the other stuff you can do as the Soviet Union that I didn't yet mention. Here we go. Okay, maybe that's enough. Like and subscribe. Bye bye.